Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive Perspective. We're going to talk about Iran, the evolution of Iran, the revolution of Iran. Iran is in the headlines, of course. It's in the crosshairs of the United States and more particularly Benjamin Netanyahu. And we could see the triggering of a World War III. That's not even a joke, because those meetings between Netanyahu and America and Trump, etc., are now taking place. And there is going to be a big push for the bombs to start flying. Now, in this Iran context, all too often, there's a lot of ignorance. Very few people know about the Islamic Revolution in Iran, what it was about, who was behind it, what was the kind of the outcome, and where is it evolved to now. And they speak with, I think, that ignorance, which is very dangerous. To understand Iran, to understand the dynamics, which are hugely complicated. I've got with me in the studio nobody better than Brother Ali Alizadeh, a YouTube phenomenon in his own right recently, who I've only come across quite recently, but who has some very nuanced narratives around the Islamic Republic, which I'm hopefully going to engage with him. Welcome to the show, Ali. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Assalamu alaikum. And I hope that the discussion today can enlighten and debunk some of many myths which are created around Iran. Many myths for which billions of dollars and pounds and euros have been spent by specific governments to create this aura of misunderstanding, demonization, and exceptionalization when it comes to Iran.
Well, as I said, to contextualize it, it's very important because Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and all the hawks across the Anglo-Zionist empire, including Britain and others, are trying to push the narrative of demonization, as you say, of Iran in order to justify war within their own public. So yes, this is a very important conversation. And I'm going to start with the notions of theocracy, which are often thrust on Iran as if that is exactly what the Velayat-e political system, the rule of the jurists, is portrayed as in the West. It's also portrayed as a sort of almost like a return to medieval systems. And there's this notion of Iranians being backward or something. And yet, on the other hand, I'm sure will give me chapter and verse on the technological, engineering exploits, the military advancement, the scientific advancement, the number of women, for instance, that have exploded in terms of educational achievement in Iran, and Iran's preeminence even in all sorts of other technologies like robotics or genome and other genetic engineering fields. There's a phenomenal knowledge economy, which is not unusual to me, because the Iranian civilization has been at the heart of knowledge economy of the entire world for well over 3,000 years, arguably. And so where do you, first of all, contextualize this demonization of Iran? I mean, Ayatollah Khomeini, who's credited as being the inspiration of the revolution, has to be balanced up also with Dr. Ali Shariati, for instance, who was another great thinker and ideologue who didn't make it to the revolution because he was allegedly assassinated a few years before it happened, but had a huge influence on the youth of Iran. And of course, there were people like Ayatollah Mutahhari and Ayatollah Beheshti, other great thinkers, great people of that movement who nobody knows anything about, but had ideas which have been germinating. So what's your take on this, Ali?
Okay, there's a lot of things to pick up on. Well, let's just explain, because at this moment you talked about a lot of advancement that Iranian revolution has achieved in the last 49 years, and we're coming to its 49th anniversary. And the very first achievement is the very fact of its existence. The fact that with everything done to destroy the Iranian state as a result of Iranian revolution, the Islamic Republic, the so-called Islamic Republic, it is still here after 49 years. You saw about 3-4 weeks ago what happened around a round of unrest in Iran, which were partially organic. Of course, they had some external influence as well. It was the result of not Velayat-e, it was not the result of Islam, or it was not the result of following the tradition of Shiism, Sunnism, or any other thing. It was the result of very modern economic weapon designed first and foremost against Iran and now using against other countries, called American-based financial sanctions, and then combined with another Western phenomena, again created and designed in Washington and then implemented and exported to other countries, called Neoliberal shock doctrine. And these two, one of them picked by the state inside Iran and the other one imposed by America from outside, created a real organic economic discontent, brought people on the street, and then you know what happened, and everyone has his own interpretation. You had these kind of things in other countries, Chile, Argentina. Javier Milei, only I think a year ago, they had like massive unrest in Argentina, in every other countries. But when it happened on Iran, it immediately gave the stage for regime change. It gave the stage for military intervention, humanitarian intervention. I mean, when the protests happened in Argentina, did European Union put Argentina's kind of military, did they enlist it as terrorist organization? Did they impose more sanctions to make the already difficult economic condition even more dire or not? So you can see there is an exceptionality about Iran, and this doesn't have anything to do with Velayat-e, because there are many other countries in the region which have a more strict kind of Islamic or Sharia-based form of kind of governance, or at least domestic issues. But America has been their best allies. I mean, you look at Saudi Arabia today, it's only 3 or 4 years that bin Salman has imposed its kind of modernizing kind of cultural elements. But before that, women were not allowed to kind of drive. You had really harsh sentences for drinking, for any other things. And the society, in comparison with Iran, looked 3,000 years behind. Did ever in the United States anyone talk about Saudi Arabia, the necessity of imposing sanctions on Saudi Arabia in order to liberate Saudi's women? And even you talk about like exporting terrorism. When it comes to Iran, I mean, it's difficult to say because even the language now is very limited. Talking about the Lebanese resistance in Britain is almost illegal. Talking about Palestinian resistance in Britain is almost illegal. So we are walking on a minefield. But you look at it, based on any political theories, Iran has always helped what you can call, from classical point of view, national liberation movements in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Yemen. Is like it's helped the official government there, which came out of 2012 Arab Spring or revolutions, and then Iran has always been punished for its defense of terrorism. But then for many years, Saudi Arabia helped actual terrorist organizations like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others. And again, we haven't had those 27 pages of September 11 dossier released. They are still redacted by American presidents one after another. Bush, Obama, kind of Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2. No one even did that. So in a sense, global audience should understand that talking about Iran and taking the focus and concentration to Velayat-e as a form of governance is completely is a misnomer, is a misleading story. So the story of Iran is not very complicated. It's a country sitting on a crossroad of the world, especially if you take away American, North America and South America as continents, and you look at the old world, the Eurasia and Africa. Iran is like really the center. So it's the best part of the country. Is like the Regent Street of the world.
Yes.
So if you want to buy property, it's a crossroad, especially today with China coming with Belt and Road and trying to like get back into land transport again from like the naval kind of civilization of European Iran. Iran is becoming even more important. In addition to that, combined gas and oil in Iran makes it the second biggest resource in the world. So it is important. Historically, it's been very important as well. The old world was divided between Roman Empire and Persian Empire up until Muslims came. It was so powerful that part of Byzantine, which was the Eastern Roman Empire, got co-opted into Islamic Caliphate, and they changed the language, the writing, and the religion. Whereas when the Islamic Caliphate came and faced Iran, it couldn't swallow up Iran. It couldn't co-opt Iran completely. It got morphed into elements of Iranian culture. Of course, I mean, Islamic Caliphate can morph into every culture that it arrived in. In India, it has its own shape. In Indonesia, has its own shape. In Africa. But when it came to Iran, it morphed into something specific. That's why the Iranians were the only nation which kept their language, Persian. They didn't change it into Arabic. They adopted Shiism, which was an internal resistance within the Islamic Caliphate. So you are Muslim, but you are not Muslim alongside the majority. You keep something of your own identity, of your discontent of being invaded by the Arab Caliphate. So you become Shiite. So Iran has always had this role until about beginning of 19th century, which couldn't catch up with the speed of Western modernity. So it suddenly started declining, lost about a third of its land to Tsar Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, the northern Azerbaijan, lost Turkmenistan. All these countries belonged to Iran up until 1812, 1820.
Yes.
I'm not saying history, I'm just reminding you of the historical importance.
Sure.
And then important part of what is Afghanistan today, which was Herat, was separated from Iran in 1850s by British Empire.
Right.
Then the country became the buffer zone from south by British Empire and the Russian Empire from north. So, and then got occupied twice in First and Second World War. So the country was like in demise. Don't look at the fancy images of Pahlavi's era fueled with kind of rising oil money. That's like just a novel rich running a Ferrari. It doesn't mean that it is truly powerful. A mafia, a drug dealer can drive nice car. Does it mean that he's been accepted to the club of the elite of a society? No. And that was the story of Iran during Pahlavi era, which today, with this like psychological regressive element in Iranian people's under the pressure of sanction, make them think that there was a heaven at that time, and we've lost it. You look at the real numbers during Pahlavi, the massive illiteracy, at times to 60%, female illiteracy, unbelievable. The life expectancy 52 years old, the child mortality 110 in 1,000. And
wow.
You come with a revolution. You come to revolution, and it's unbelievable. A revolution which is theocratic, a revolution which is supposed to be backward, medieval time, use of Islam, a mullah with a turban sitting in a room that he didn't even allow to be painted. So it was very dilapidated in Jamaran. He sat on his balcony and he just got all these young people came and he talked to them. And then a republic which before it was even 1 year old, it was 1.5 years old. Before it was 2 years old, it had already faced a lot of civil war by opposing groups, by the separatists in Kurdistan, Turkmenistan, Balochistan, and then immediately got invaded by Saddam Hussein from Iraq, supported by all Persian Gulf Arab monarchies, by all European countries, supported by Soviet Union, and the indirect help of United States of America.
Well,
so in a sense,
Ali, there, on that point, it does kind of summarize what you said at the beginning of your point, was that actually it's a miracle that the Islamic Republic of Iran has actually survived, let alone thrive to the level, I guess it has in many, many areas. But of course, that has stuck in the gullet of largely what I would call the Anglo-Zionist empire. They've not accepted that Iran is a legitimate state. In fact, arguably every day of the post-revolutionary Iran, there's been one form of terrorism, be it economic sanctions, be it sort of psychological operations or color revolutions or for a direct invasion, as with Saddam. And it wasn't just invasions. I mean, chemical warfare was inflicted on Iran. Crimes, war crimes of a heinous nature have been committed. Tell me a little bit about, the attacks of the Tsar Western Empire on Iran since the revolution.
Exactly. So the number one, the attempt by Americans to have a coup d'état, because they had done one before, when Iran, before Velayat-e or any of these mass popular movements of revolutionary kind, Iran in 1950 tried to nationalize its oil by Mossadegh in a classical, secular, liberal, democratic, socialist, semi-social government with social welfare. They did a coup d'etat in 1953. So they thought they can do a coup d'etat this time as well, with the difference that Ayatollah Khomeini invoked a kind of political energy which was suppressed for millennium. So he brought this religious energy and he directed that to politics, and he created mass number of political subjectivity. So he created millions of people who were nothing before revolution, who were like not even subjects in a pre-French Revolution meaning. Yeah, they were nothing. They had no significance in the political arena, and he created them into people who could go and give their life in the war with Iraq, but also could have a lot of demands, could have voice, who could even oppose the state, the republic, and saying that this is not revolutionary enough. Khomeini says something else. They could oppose the president, prime minister. So when you look at Iran today, why there's such a clamor of opposing voices inside Iran, reformists, principalists, this faction, the other faction, why everyone has a voice, everyone is full of discontent, is the result of revolution, because revolution gave people the right of being political citizens. And there's a massive difference between citizen and subjects. The number one. Second thing is, in that, like you asked me, the list of the crimes, the attempt to coup, the arming Saddam to his teeth, as you said, the chemical weapon giving the signals and the satellite imagery and maps to Saddam where to attack Iranians. But what I was going to say was different. I was going to say that by 1988, the day that the war was finished, in the first 10 years of revolution, despite the fact that you had 8 years of massive war in which a lot of Iranian infrastructure was destroyed, you look at child mortality. How much do you think it was? From 110 during Shah with oil price and all the help from America and being part of Marshall Plan. The child mortality had decreased to 9. To 9, from 110 to 9. For a country under isolation, under war, under encirclement. So that's why when people doubt the fact that Iranian revolution was a revolution, they just have to look at the massive development in humanitarian index. It's unbelievable. The illiteracy reached 1%. Yeah. So, and that's why I believe the achievement of revolution was unbelievable, and it makes it confirms the fact that it was a true revolution. So the mode of conduct, the mode of political conduct, it was something akin to the native land. It brought, because Iran has had monarchy since 500 BC. Iranians created empire. They created monarchy, and they called it, in English, I don't know, you call it Farre-Izadi, or like divine royal glory, or
right.
Divinely bestowed charisma. Yeah? Farre-Izadi. And I think because the monarchy was not authentic anymore, Pahlavi dynasty was imposed by Brits. It was not a monarchy which was won either through a popular movement or by the might of the sword. It didn't have legitimacy. And the second Pahlavi was reinstalled by American and CIA and MI6 coup d'etat. So in a sense, Khomeini actually was seen as this philosopher king, both rooted in his own idea of Velayat-e, which is very close to anyone who's read Plato's Republic. Plato's Republic believes the power should be in the hand of those who have no interest in having power. So there are like philosopher kings who only are interested in knowledge and in other worldly things. So they are not going to abuse the power. And I mean, even when you look at Khomeini doesn't have any property. Yes, you will read in Reuters that Khomeini has $95 billion empire, but himself personally, he lives in the same simple house, and he doesn't have those kind of things. So that's the idea of Velayat-e. Of course, since the revolution, that idea has faced the reality outside, and today many people don't agree with it, and I'm sure it's going to evolve. It may not even work anymore. Yeah, but at the time that it came, it meant that we do not want the previous monarchy, and this guy Khomeini, who was rooted in fiqh, which is like Islamic jurisprudence, Irfan, or like Islamic Iranian spirituality,
Sure.
and philosophy. He was a Mullah Sadra follower, and he was a Sadraist. Yeah? And so Khomeini had these three roots, and combined together, he reached the very suppressed element of Iranian Geist or a spirit. So, and I think the result is that Khomeini came to Iran with 3 million out of 30 million Iranians going to welcome him on the streets of Tehran. And when he died, after whatever political violence he had conducted, after 220,000 young people died in the war that many people accused him of continuing with no reason, 8 million people went to his funeral. 8 million people went to his farewell. So that means he was a popular, genuine, charismatic leader. So that's one thing. So whether after him, the second leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had that much charisma, whether he could continue using the same legitimacy was a different story. And so one of the sources of contradictions and contention in Iranian system since 1990, I think, relies on that, because Ayatollah Khamenei didn't enjoy the same level of popularity. The state and the elite were much more divided, and he more or less was seen as belonging to one of the factions before he became the leader. So, and also the events of 1990 made the Iranian political factions diverge. One faction became too neoliberal, too pro-Western, and they became what you call revisionists. They became revisionists, and they wanted to change the direction of revolution. They thought that's what happened in Soviet Union in 1980s by Gorbachev. We should do it before the state collapses. That's what happened after Mao Zedong in China. We need to revise our revolutionary rule. And the other side stayed fast, and they continued, especially in their enmity in their resistance against America and insistence on Iran's independence. So you had this endless contradiction between these two factions. These two factions, combined with the endless pressure coming from outside, especially from America and from 2003 from Israel, and later from European Union, has brought us here. The Republic is a bit tired, or more than a bit. The Republic is kind of fatigued internally. The society has grown in many different shapes. So you have a young generation who might not even remember the first decade of revolution, doesn't have much memory of it. The country is encircled by endless satellite channels who are fabricating history. And also the temptation and the attraction of globalized American culture is immense. We have it here in Europe as well. British young children, they follow American culture rather than British culture. French, you look at even European small national cultures are being co-opted and merged into American culture, let alone Iran. So which you suffer from this sense of ghettoization. You feel you are ghettoized, you are isolated. So anything coming from outside is doubly exciting. But much more important than anything else is the economic problem. Right. I think the problem in Iran is when you look at all the indexes up until 2010, the lack of popularity, the lack of legitimacy, they were all manageable. From 2010-11, the sanctions started strangulating Iran. Then Iran sat down on the negotiation table, tried to manage the sanctions by compromising and by giving Washington what it wanted in terms of receiving guarantees on the fact that Iran is not willing to make nuclear bomb. And for about 2 or 3 years, they managed it. But then with the entrance of Trump, everything changed again, and the pressure built up and built up and built up again. And you look at all these points in which you have eruption and kind of explosion in Iran, explosion of people's anger. They exactly, in a very one-to-one, clear way, correlate with the economic.
Well, Brother Ali, this is absolutely extraordinary and a really in-depth overview, and I think it's context which most people in the West certainly haven't got a clue about, probably not even in the East. So I thank you for that. I'm kind of going to focus in on a few points that you picked on, the economy being one, and the fact that there's been this sanctions pressure and a lot of other factors. You've mentioned the hundreds of anti-Islamic government channels, Iran International, for instance, being one. I mean, there has been a huge attack on Iran, cultural psyops, as well as the economic psyops, as well as the color revolutions. I can't imagine very many nations. Cuba arguably has survived, but even Cuba hasn't had this level of investment in destroying it. So Iran is a special case. Even Russia, I don't think, has had this scale of attack, although now you could argue that it is under the same level of sanctions and war, etc., that the West is inflicting on it. But what I'm intrigued by is, first of all, the resilience of the Iranian people in spite of all this, and what I would describe as a healthy political set of differences. But at the same time, I mean, surely that's the whole point of a democracy, be it religious or rooted or otherwise, is to have variations of views and for those to be expressed and for people to have arguments and to protest and become demonstrators. But then there's the next level that if, for instance, in Britain, you had the Scottish secessionist movement funded financially by, I don't know, Russia, or for instance, and injected with huge amounts of weapons, ammunitions, ideological indoctrination, cultural attacks against Britain, and you tried to create the overthrow of Britain as we know it. I mean, I dare say Starmer or whoever was in power at that time would call out the security guards, he'd call out the military, he would call out everybody that was necessary in order to keep the integrity of Britain. Yet we have the Western media crying and obfuscating protester from rioter through to terrorists. They somehow have forgotten the difference between the three, and they've kind of launched this absolutely unbelievable, incredible attack on Iran. Virtually every other social media post I was getting suddenly turned into some Iranian individual who was attacking the government or was pro-royalist or was anti-government. So this level of attack, if it's sustained, I mean, on top of the war which Netanyahu definitely wants to inflict on Iran, do you think that the next 5 years even, I mean, even less than that, do you think Iran can survive this onslaught in its present form?
That's a very good question. But before, let me just say my own position, where I'm coming from, because this is a very heated time, and
yes,
and everyone asking. I mean, the thing what you mentioned, the level of external pressure on Iran is immense. As we talked last week, Iran and United States sat down together for the first round of new negotiation. As much as I remember, the last 20 years of every Iranian's lives has been somehow affected by one round of negotiation. It started in Saadabad in Tehran in 2003, continued in 2004, then it stopped 2005, restarted again 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, then 15, then Iran deal came out of it, Trump came out of it in 2017. So a whole nation's life has been affected by this endless external pressure. And I invite anyone in Britain anyone in British politics to experience a week of those sanctions and see how much unpredictability, uncertainty it imposes on your system. And those uncertainties will then be translated into social mayhem, social unrest, and other things. And it will be interesting to see whether they can. British government, British state, with all its resilience and deep-rooted historical strengths, whether it can tolerate it or not. So.
Sure.
That's one thing. But at the same time, so when it comes to the fact that in the last few weeks, the moment that Iran unrest erupted, everyone in the West tried to make it look like there's a genuine revolution, and Iranian people have said no. It's like, it's what you call psyops, it's what you call hybrid warfare, is a mirage that produced by media in order to confuse everyone. Iran has 90 million population. At most, few 100,000 people have come to the street. It's important, has to be taken seriously, but it doesn't mean that Iran is going through regime change or anything else. The fact that not a single policeman, not even like IRGC, not even like army, not even intelligence, even a policeman, someone who stands on the street and hold traffic, didn't defect from the state to come out with a kind of video on Instagram saying that I'm not going to stay with them anymore, tells you that we are like we are far away from regime collapse or regime change or any of these narratives designed by America. That's one thing.
Right.
And second thing is, when imperialism shows so much thirst in destroying a state, you have to be immediately armed. Take your hand to your arm and be very cautious, understanding that they want something. And position is very easy. After Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these experiences, when Washington and White House are talking about regime change, no one, whether you're coming from Islamic background, left background, right background, if you side by them, so you're siding by imperialists for another destruction of yet another country in West Asia. So it's number one. Second, as an Iranian inside Iran who is standing proudly on the values of Iranian Revolution, which is independence, freedom, social justice, I'm standing proudly on the values of Iranian culture, which is Shiism, which is Iranian soft nationalism, which hasn't invaded another country, is not imperialistic, has been always defensive. I say what happened in the streets of Tehran is not acceptable. I'm a critique of Iranian government. I'm fighting to stop the neoliberal elements in Iranian government to become more powerful. I'm warning the state that this level of violence, even if it was because of infiltration by Mossad, is not acceptable. Is the duty of the government to keep the safety and security of people who are protesting, even if they say down with the Islamic Republic. So there are two different separate discussions. Inside Iran, I say I am critique of what happened because I am a loyal subject of Iranian Revolution. Iranian Revolution taught me, Shiism taught me, Ali ibn Abi Talib taught me that people have the right to protest, have the right to be angry if economically they've been robbed away by some oligarchy. And Iranian Revolution teaches me that oligarchy and Iranian state are not compatible. The Iranian oligarchy have to be stopped, have to be pushed back. That's one argument. But here in UK, when I can see every single channel from Telegraph and Guardian to supposedly independent media, they have only one aim: to legitimize regime change. I'm old enough. I've been here 26 years. I've seen so many regime change. I've seen so many American and British invasion of West Asian countries that I have zero problem by opposing them and understanding which camp I am in. There is no third camp. As someone who is acting in the international arena, you're either with America and Britain and EU's regime change, or you are with allowing a nation in Iran to have national self-determination. Iranians have enough experience, have enough political will, have enough institutions to determine their own future, to transform Velayat-e, make it more religious, make it more secular, whatever direction they want to go, they can go. And I didn't have time to explain that.
Well, that's another really good set of insights, very balanced. And I'm going to focus on.
So let me just answer your question.
Yes, please.
Next 5 years, next 5 years. If the situation continues with the current situation and the current pace, this looks like Iran is going to be swallowed. The term that Ayatollah Khomeini used himself, he said, America's aim is to swallow Iran.
Right.
And especially, Ayatollah Khomeini is old. His passing away will produce vacuum of power. That's another layer of uncertainty. The factional infighting in Iran, and it seems that Israel is in rush to finish the job because Israel knows that American empire is in decline and doesn't have eternity to bring America along in order to attack Iran. So while Iran is patiently trying to buy time in its strategic patience, Israel and America are accelerationists, are accelerating the pace and trying to put whatever they have and increase the tempo. So I think these two are not compatible anymore. If Iran continues, I think the next 5 years will be difficult. The Islamic Republic will stay, but you will have pockets of civil war around Iran in border provinces like Khuzestan, Kurdistan, Azerbaijan. You will have unrest and a lot of insecurity inside Iran as well. The economic situation will be more kind of dire, and you have a massive, even bigger kind of immigration flight from Iran, especially doctors, any kind of skilled workers, and so the country will suffer. But I believe there is an intelligence within Iranian system. There are different factions, and of course there are problems. There is a cancerous oligarchic elements as well. But I think because the moment is of the kind of existential threat, I think the Iranians are about changing the course of action. They are changing their strategy, and I think they will do. I think if they don't do it, they will go to the decline. But I'm sure they are changing, and you already see by appointing Ali Shamkhani as the head of Council of Defense. You can see by the language of the commanders of IRGC and army. It seems that they are abandoning their too defensive, too kind of patient way, and they're adopting a more offensive approach, both externally and internally. As I'm talking to you, a round of arrests of some of the reformists who have been accused of working with Americans has started in Iran. So maybe we are going to see a wave of purge inside the state as well. So we have to wait and see. But with the current strategy, things are not very bright. If they change it, I think Iran has enough internal resource to fight back, and the time is in Iran's side, not in America as a declining empire.
Well, again, we're talking about alternatives. When you talk about neoliberal elements and oligarchs within Iran, of course, it triggers alarm bells within me as well, because anybody in their sane mind would be against the kind of oligarchy that we've been seeing exposed day by day. Less than 10, 15 years ago, if you talked about this oligarchy, you'd be called a conspiracy theorist, or you'd be laughed out of the room because nobody wanted to look that far. But to be honest with you, the chickens seem to be coming home to roost here in the West as well in terms of those oligarchies and the power of the City of London Corporation, the Wall Street men, the men behind Donald Trump, and the Zionist lobbies. All of these are part of that levers of power of a very strong oligarchy globally. For Iranian oligarchs, presumably it'd be very, very tempting to join the globalist oligarchy because they would make a lot of money out of that, I assume. So for them to undermine Iran and undermine the idea of the collapse of, say, Velayat-e, and the only thing that really stands out for Velayat-e for me, you very excellently pointed out the ideas of social justice, self-determination, sovereignty, and all those things which are linked to the revolution, no matter which side of the Iranian political arena you come from. But there were certain things that, an Islamic iteration of Iran could have done or should have done by now. One of those is, the idea of opposing usury, opposing the bankster system, and they have to some extent. I mean, Iran has been sanctioned, World Bank, but they've not really implemented the entire, the entire system. Though I know, social welfare-wise, as you pointed out, the Iranian people receive welfare, they receive support, and the infrastructure. I've been to Iran, and they've got an impressive metro that is better than our London one, quite frankly, in terms of hygiene and efficiency. It may not be as big, but it was certainly efficient. So I could see many things that have been done under duress. I can't help wondering if the sanctions hadn't been there and an Islamic revolutionary process had been allowed to continue without the interference of foreigners, without the undermining done by the oligarchs within, Tadrish, where I see all those high-rise flats going up and a kind of a neoliberal, highly hyper-capitalist kind of mindset, then I can't help but think that Iran, with its sophistication, with its family emphasis on family as a nucleus, community, that whole thing that is definitely there within Iranian culture, those are things I can't help but say those are fantastic potential opposite models of a society to the one that we're seeing here in the neoliberal West, especially since the 1980s, where all we've seen is individualism, we've seen narcissism, we've seen people become addicted to drugs, mental health issues, we've seen the economy being used by billionaires and trillionaires to become completely non-trickle down, and actually everything is in reverse. And we're seeing essentially the collapse of Europe in real time as we speak. So that's the future. If that's the future that the neoliberals or the reformists or those people who still are looking westwards for solutions, if that's their idea of what they want in Iran, that seems like a little bit uninventive. And if that isn't the way forward, what is, in your opinion?
So, I mean, you talk about like addiction and thing. You have to remember, we shouldn't represent a rosy image of Iran. The revolutionaries in Iran, actually, they were opposing Shah's kind of management of society, which in their ideas led to many addicts and alcoholics. But now the numbers in Iran are not very good. The official number is 300,000 alcoholics in Iran and 2.9, some people say 4 million drug addicts, methamphetamine, crack, heroin, and other things. So let me just be very clear. I mean, that revolutions are alive. They move, they transform. Revolutions are not static. So if we look at what happened in 1979 and try to romanticize about that, is we have to travel back in time, because 79ers are already moving somewhere else. Some of them going to become emphasizing on like economic development. The other ones want to like have more independence and military kind of power, etc. They already have changed. But as we saw in this round of protests, for 15, 16 days, Iranian people came and said, no, we are tired of your economic mismanagement, your neoliberal pressure, your shock doctrine. And I think that's revolutionary as well, connected to people who 40 years ago, 50 years ago, during Shah, wouldn't do anything. But now they've learned to use their voice. But what happens immediately, the protest becomes so bloody, becomes so violent. Immediately, a protest which is about change, of putting pressure on government to change its economic course, becomes something which is discussed in Washington. B-2s are moved. U.S. Abraham Lincoln is moved. So whatever American, European Union, British government, Australia, Canada, and whatever people who thought they were helping Iranians did in the last 5 weeks was to deprive Iranians of the right to change the course of their living and reform the economic situation. So they robbed away Iranians from the right of imposing change on their own government. Because any change, any voice of discontent in Iran immediately becomes securitized, become weaponized by the West. And that has been the story of the last 50 years. That's why the revolution has been more static than the society. So while the society is moving really fast, imagine a traditional family in 1979. The father, the rural Iran is similar to Afghanistan today. The father wouldn't let the daughter to go to school. The school is like dangerous place. It's a place of kufr, yeah, is a place of like, especially with Shah's
Corruption, yes.
cultural modernization, wouldn't do that. Khomeini comes. The public space is Islamicized, is safe. The father sends the daughter to school. The daughter wants to go to university, goes to university, comes back. Now she's like a lawyer. Now she doesn't want to get married. I mean, the age of marriage was 17 or 18. Now
Sure.
I don't like this man. I like the other man. So the society has changed as the result of revolution,
Yes.
and has been on a very fast pace.
Yes.
But the state, because of all its limitations and pressure from outside, couldn't catch up with that. Then an outsider look at it and says it's because there are mullahs in power, because the Velayat-e is in power. Has very little to do with that. Actually, mullahs are much more agile in adopting the kind of social changes and translating it into something which is legitimate by for the nation, for the people. I don't think that was the problem. The problem was the fact that all this pressure made the state, one, really wary of any political protest, any form of kind of popular demand for big changes, and number two, economic situation was really limited the state's delivery of its promises. These two things together are the main crippling issues, not Velayat-e and others.
I got it.
Otherwise, in my opinion, just last sentence, even Velayat-e would have changed much earlier. Might have been another referendum. We would have had a kind of Velayat-e Shorai, from group of Wali Faqihs, not only one person. What I'm saying is the system was capable of reforming itself from within if it wasn't so much pressure from outside.
Well, it does seem as though for the majority of the Islamic Republic of Iran's existence, post-revolutionary existence, it's been dominated by reformist rulers, whether it was the time of Ayatollah Khatami, or whether it was the time of Ayatollah Rouhani, or if you take even the present-day Pezeshkian government, they've generally been veering towards the idea of rapprochement with the West, making peace, and it's rooted also in this kind of being convinced that neoliberal Western economies and ideas are really the ones that perhaps Iran should adopt too. That's been clear. So it's been hardly Islamic revolutionary in that sense. They've not been pushing those kinds of policies. Now, at the same time, you've got the West reneging constantly on these agreements, like the JCPOA, for instance, and also other promises that they've made. And you've seen the continued strangulation of Iran with the sanctions. And it's all ultimately for raising Israel and raising this notion of a greater Israel, which stretches beyond, of course, the borders it has today, but actually right up to the Euphrates in some people's estimation. And that, of course, means Pax Judaica, which is another concept that's touted, is very much on the cards. And the only way Pax Judaica could really live comfortably is if the Islamic Republic of Iran was balkanized or fragmented, as you've been hinting at. And is that where we're going? Is that what is on the agenda? And is that what Iran is trying to push back against as well?
I mean, at the moment, I'm not sure about like Pax Judaica in the world, but at least in West Asia, there is definitely no doubt that the plan is to make Israel the hegemonic power in the region, and everyone should be subservient to Israel. There's absolutely, and there's a logic of realpolitik to it, because America cannot continue overstretching its military bases globally, so is going back to its own backyard, and so it needs to deliver the region to come to Israel and make sure that Israel is kind of running the region as the sole aggressor with the only nuclear arsenal. That's why this whole endless debate about Iran's nuclear issue is only one state here is allowed to have weapon of mass destruction, and that's Israel, who's also ironically is the only genocider in the region. And so all of these things true, but let me just explain. It's not about exactly secularization or any other thing. The plan is, just remember, I mean, because we talk about Iranian oligarchy, some people think this again has anything to do with the current state or revolution. The Iranian oligarchies are the result and product of following the teachings and the preaching of West for a country like Iran.
Right.
The technocrats who created the environment for the current oligarchy in Iran, they were all students of economy in mainly Britain, in 1990s Britain, from LSE, Reading University, you name it, like Edinburgh. Rouhani himself studied, Said Hassan Rouhani, the ex-president, studied in Glasgow University. And in 1990, they all came back to Iran. Imagine the time the Soviet Union has collapsed, then this whole privatization was very, very attractive. And they told the leaders of Iran that there is no other way apart from absolute privatization. Many people at the time told them that we are not ready, there are not enough institutions to oversee the fact that privatization doesn't coincide with a lot of corruption. They said, no, privatization is a remedy to everything.
Right.
They really, really pushed for it. So in a sense, before like sanctions and before America's new wave of war and invasion in Iran, we face a kind of epistemic invasion,
right,
an invasion of knowledge. So this is very deep-rooted doctrine. Now, it's about 3 decades long that we have to impose all the neoliberal measures in Iran. There's no other way, otherwise we will become another Cuba. We cannot have any development. So they came as well. But the only thing which has stopped them is, I think, is the memory of revolution. So if the revolution gets weaker, or if there's a regime change in the which is fantasized by the West, we're going to have a much more rapid form of neoliberalization of economy. Still, Iran has a kind of acceptable social welfare for West Asian country in comparison with all its neighboring countries. Education, health, and other subsidies given by the government. And they want to get rid of all of it. So that's what America wants. America wants to get back to Iran, have full access to its resources, but also open the market for cheap labor force one side and absolutely deregulated economy from the other side. That's America. I think Israel wants something else. Israel wants destruction, separation, civil war, mayhem, unrest, and chaos for the next 10, 20 years. Wants another Syria from Iran, because only smaller countries in the region will allow Israel to be hegemonic. Because as things stand today, a country of 90 million population and massive size of 1,600,000, 72 times bigger than Israel at the moment, with a real existing 3,000 years history, not a invented history, of course, will be stronger and you cannot swallow it. But if you cut this country into 5 or 6 different regions and make it get exhausted in internal problems, of course, then Israel maybe become the hegemonic region in the hegemonic power in the region. So I'm not sure whether I answered your question.
No, you certainly did, and you've done much more. But the final question is your prediction, really. Do you see Israel convincing Donald Trump this week or over the next week to actually attack Iran, and to what level? Is it going to be a long war, or do you think it'd be maybe a short one where Trump tries to buckle the system to his demands? What do you think is going to unfold?
I mean, the day that they are meeting is very alarming. The meeting, which was supposed to be on, I think it was supposed to be on 1st of March, has been moved to 11th of February. And 11th of February is the anniversary of Iranian Revolution, 49th anniversary of Iranian Revolution. So you have to remember, everything here is America's attempt to take revenge on Iranian Revolution. A nation in West Asia, a nation in Third World, a nation in Islamic world has dared to say no to America, no to American intervention, has dared to say, I want to be independent and I don't want to be ruled from Washington anymore. And even today, with all its problems, with all its really tragic problems. I mean, losing 3,200 people in over 2 days is not acceptable for me as an Iranian who, as I said, is loyal to Iranian revolution. And so all these big problems, but still, Iran is run from Tehran. Is not run from Washington. It's not run from London. So, and that's not acceptable for America. America still has this residue of its old imperial time and wants to undo Iranian revolution. Ask yourself, among all these appropriate candidates to be part of Iran's transitory government, why do they have to choose Reza Pahlavi, an absolute no one, a man who hasn't worked a day in his life, still is in the living off pocket money from his mom, from the money they stole from Iran, that $20 billion that, according to Washington Post, they took away in suitcases the day they ran away from Iran. Why Reza Pahlavi, someone who wasn't charismatic, someone who had no mandate with the people? Why they have to advocate him? Because I think it's it's a revenge of 79 revolution. They want to go back to before 79. Otherwise, they could go forward. They could bring someone like Narges Mohammadi, a female Nobel Prize winner who is talking about human rights, could be a fake Aung Suu Kyi or Mandela of Iran. But they don't want that. They want to send a message to the neighboring Arab monarchies that don't worry, you were so anxious about Iranian revolution in the last 49 years, you thought maybe your own nations wake up and throw you out as well, to all these oil-based Arab monarchies of Saudi, Jordan, and even to Morocco, to United Arab Emirates. They're telling them, calm down, we are taking your revenge as well. So everything is going back to that moment. So the meeting is a bit alarming because Israel has chosen ceremonial dates in calendar for attacking Iran previously. So this might be a moment in which they can attack Iran as well. But let me just give you a formula.
Yes.
The moment that Iranian military take their hand off the trigger, the moment that there's a vulnerability in Iran's intelligence, security, or military apparatus, Israel or America will attack, either overtly or in covert wars. Because there's the covert war between Israel and Iran has never stopped. There's everyday explosion. There's assassinations that many of them don't even make it to the news. Yeah. So otherwise, I don't know. Depends whether Trump get a bit more rational or not, because I think Israeli media and Zionist media created a kind of chaotic chaotic environment full of noise that even Trump had to come along. And maybe they told Trump that he can have one of his easy wars by going in and out, 24-hour campaign, bringing his B-2s, bringing his Navy, and force Iran into something. Maybe that's it. But I think Trump knows that, at least from the clear signals that Iranian leaders send, that this is not going to be a short war like the 12 Days War. Iranian government has shown its readiness to enter long war, and I think that's important. I think what Trump wants at this stage is one thing: to take away, or at least be assured of the fact that Iran does not have access to the 400 kilogram of the 60% enriched uranium anymore. Because as long as there's an ambiguity around that stockpile, they don't know whether Iran has already achieve some tactical nuke, or it can cross the threshold and become a fully nuclear power or not. If by pressure of negotiation and the help of the fifth column inside Iran and putting pressure on the public and the demand of the public for pushing Iranians to compromise more, they get that 400 kilogram out of Iran. I think the possibility of war become more. And also there was a meeting between Trump and Netanyahu in America, I think 2 weeks ago, in which, according to Israeli paper, Netanyahu has already got the green signal for unilaterally attacking Iran's missile sites. So I think at this stage, it's very difficult to say. Whether Trump is pushed completely to enter a war depends on the signals they have from Iran, and whether they think by removing, there's only one chance. The reason I'm hesitating so much, because it's a very complicated question.
Yes, yeah,
The
I get it.
The only chance that they attack Iran and Iran doesn't open the fire on the whole region is by removing Sayyid Ali Khamenei and the main people around him, the more like revolutionary elements in the state. And so change the balance of the state internally and tilt it to make the liberals more powerful. That's the only possibility. So in a sense, it's $1 million question, which includes possibility of a coup d'etat inside Iran, kind of surgical attacks from above, and pressure, and the fact that, yeah, exactly. But I think even if that happens, as I have heard from in the last few months, Iranian leadership has passed the orders to 6 or 7 layers. So even if 6 or 7 layers of leadership are assassinated, still there is a military system who knows what to do and how to fight to the end.
Yes, well, there seems to me to be a moral question here, an ethical question. You know, either we're anti-imperialist and we oppose the boot on the neck of the global South comprehensively, and indeed it's also in other parts of the world, Africa and of course South America, or we don't, because quite often there is this hypocrisy that I'm noticing, even in the anti-imperialist movement and the stop the war movements around here, where suddenly on certain nations which are clearly fighting for sovereignty, which are clearly up against imperialist agendas, we go quiet. So the left is guilty of this as much as anybody else. I've seen many people exposed, first of all around Palestine, but then even more so now over Iran, and particularly with the likes of Owen Jones, the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, who've all taken very lukewarm attitudes and haven't openly condemned imperialist intentions against Iran. And I just think that that is something that we need to question much more internally. Now, of course, I don't know where this is going to go, and maybe, Ali, you've got some thoughts around the anti-imperialist movement here in the West, and whether you think we're actually operating faithfully on Iran.
Yeah, but I'm just going to give one comment and talk to of the audience clearly. I came to Britain in 2000, and then very soon the wave of imperialist supposed campaign on terrorists started, and the wars started. And I remember in 2003, when I was in the demonstration against invading Iraq, I was divided in my heart, and I wasn't sure, because I was brought up during Saddam's bombardment on Iranian cities. I was brought up seeing 18 years old, 20 years old young kids in my neighborhood coming back home in coffins, and I saw my teachers, my university lecturers, mathematics professors in the best of Iranian universities died before the age of 40 by the result of by the consequence of chemical warfare that Saddam used. So, and then also we had Iraqis living with us in Iran who ran away from Saddam's genocide in South Iraq, because Saddam killed 100,000 Shiites in the south, 100,000 Kurds in the north. And then, so it was very difficult for me to clear my heart, saying that don't bomb Saddam. And I remember this is a speech by Sami Ramadani, an Iraqi who came in 15th of February 2003. Yes. And he mentioned, I think his brother or his cousin was killed in Saddam's dungeons and Saddam's prisons, and saying that, well, I'm not defending Saddam's regime. I'm saying that any form of war makes the situation much harder for Iraqi people. And from that moment, then I fast forwarded to every single day waking up from 2004, 2005, all the way to 2018, to explosion in one city of Iraq and after another one. And up to 1 million people died in Iraq. And
Yes.
that's Saddam. And I don't compare Iranian state with Saddam's regime, because Saddam's regime was truly brutal, was a regime of like, I don't know, less than few hundred or few thousand people kind of grabbing the power. Iranian state is an organic post-revolutionary state. But what I'm trying to say is, if Iranian state was as brutal as Saddam, still the choice for ordinary people in Britain, in America, is very simple. It's not up to you to intervene in another country, in another part of the world that you know nothing about. Is your rule, is your duty to intervene in your own government's supply of arm to countries like Saudi Arabia when they're bombing Yemen, countries like Israel when they're bombing Palestine, or your country when they're throwing economic warfare on a country like Iran in terms of sanctions. So you have to ask your government to stop intervening and meddling with the world, not to meddle in the world and finding excuse every time. Iran is not good with, like, I don't know, that minority. No one says Iranian state and society is rosy with no problem. But the question is, you as a British, American, French, German, you have nothing to do with that. You don't know anything about that region, and you've done nothing in the last 300-400 years apart from causing pain, suffering, massacre, genocide in other parts of the world. So your only clear duty is to stop meddling and stop your government from meddling, not to find excuses to again repeat your government. So in a sense, the supposed left in the West are looking for the least excuse to always, without exception, embark on their government's imperialistic mission once after another time. And every time, after a few years, they realize it was mistaken, and then they become anti-war when it's too late. But when it's on the moment, they are always, I don't know, miraculously are supporting the war.
So thanks very much, Brother Ali Alizadeh, for your contribution, for your nuanced insights, and for laying such a kind of detailed analysis out about the Islamic Republic of Iran. Certainly not what legacy media is pumping out in terms of propaganda and hasbara, and also not a simplistic, supportive, rose-petal view of Islamic Republic of Iran. Something a little bit more honest, I would say. And I'd say that also, in terms of going forward, do watch Ali Alizadeh's YouTube channel as well, because he regularly puts things out there. We'll try and put up his channel details for you. And of course, do support Deep Dive Perspective, because only with your support, by sharing, liking, subscribing, becoming members, can we maintain this independent channel and give you an alternative to literally the lies that I see on mainstream legacy media. And that legacy media is also permeating into the influencers that on social media. I see that kind of confusion is also going on. We're going to stick solidly with our truth narratives, but we need your support. Thank you for watching this Deep Dive Perspective. Goodbye.